everyone. It's time for a little online talk. My guest today is Marie from ComposHer, a great project based in France. And they do a lot of things. So they write down scores, music sheets, they write articles, CD reviews. And here she is. So a warm welcome to Marie. Wait a little bit. She should be here in an instant. Yes.
Hello everyone, yes, I'm here.
Hi. Wonderful to
Hi,
have you, Marie.
wonderful to be here.
Yeah, I really appreciate your work. You're doing such a great job with this project. So, in the beginning, maybe you can present yourself and also the project.
Yeah, so I'm Mary from France, like you said. So the project, I'm also joined by my cat, so you might see her in the background. So the project is ComposHer. We started it 4 years ago. And like in my actual real life, I'm a music editor. I edit scores of forgotten composers, French composers mostly. That's my actual job, which is kind of amazing in itself. And well, with a friend, Clara, who also founded Composer with me, we figured out a couple of years ago we don't know any women composers. Why is that? How does that work? How have we been doing music our whole lives and not knowing any of them? And that's how everything started. Basically, we wanted to do something useful for to help others be more aware that these amazing women exist and yeah, that's how we got started.
Okay, so I have several questions. The
Yeah.
cute cat.
Yes,
So
she's making noise.
the first question, you said that you didn't know any female composers. So what was your first contact? What was your first work and your first
um,
female composer?
so I guess the first contact, the first thing that got us into this were radio things that a journalist in France, Aliette Delalleux, was doing. She was doing presentations of female composers on the radio, and that's how we heard about them firstly. Um, the first work I've encountered and actually worked on by a female composer was the first overture by Emily Meyer.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah,
Aha.
yeah, and it came around because so Clara and I, we met in orchestra. She's a violinist. I mean, I play the viola. This is all amateur orchestra.
Mhm.
And we were playing a Schubert symphony that semester. And it was so easy just to get the scores, right? You go online, you type Schubert, symphony number, whatever, and you've got plenty of options. So, so I found this German composer, Emily Meyer, and I found this score online that so you had the orchestral score, so with all the instruments, but you couldn't have the separate parts. So the violinist would need to have his or her own score with just his notes, and not everyone else's. So basically that's how it started. I worked on that piece first, and Composer didn't even exist at that point. I just wanted to do something useful, and Clara had this idea of doing much more things around that and helping on all fronts, right? Because there's the scores issues, but there's also not finding enough recordings, not finding people who are willing to play the pieces, um, finding just info on the composers. Sometimes you barely have a name and nothing else. So yeah, the first one was Amelie Meyer. Yeah, she's a big composer for us.
And how long did it take you to write down all the parts?
For the overture, I think, well, it's a process, right? So I write down all of the parts in maybe a couple of months. If I This is all done on a voluntary basis. I have a job on the side, so this is when I have the time. But yeah, a couple of months, and then you've got all of the proofreading, listening to the audio that the music notation software gets you, so that you can hear if you've made any mistakes. And then all of the so that takes a while as well, because you have to be quite focused not to miss anything, and all of the layouts and making the score look quite professional, because that's the point, right? We are also aware that when a score might not look as professional as a famous edition, people will dismiss it much more quickly. Like it doesn't look like a Mozart symphony, so it might not be as good. And that we all know that that's a shame. But we try to have very professional looking scores, so that people will be convinced at face value a bit. So for the first overture, I'd say overall it might have taken me 6 months, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it really depends on the piece. Obviously, a symphony is going to take more time than a piano piece, for instance. But yeah, that's about it.
And you said that it was Clara and you. Is the team still you two, or did people join you?
We have a lot of volunteers now.
Uh-huh.
They help on different
How many?
aspects of.
Do you know?
At the moment, something like 24, I think.
Wow.
Doing various things like helping with the scores, proofreading, and also typesetting. Actually, we have new volunteers who are willing to do that, which is great. And also writing articles, CD reviews, helping create the playlists, also just doing general research on female composers. And we have a big database that's not open to the public, because we're not quite there yet, but we have a lot of info about composers and their music, and we just continually update that. So we need people who are willing to do the research. Yeah, so we have quite a lot of people at the moment, and I'd say the core team. So there's Clara and I, because we founded the thing, but we've also been joined by Noemi and Apolline, who are both amazing women who are also very into this project and who are helping us and on the daily side to just do a lot of things online, to be a real presence in this community.
And did you ask them, or did they ask you to join?
We do regularly, like maybe once a year, a campaign on our social media, asking if people want to join the project, right? Because and not everyone might be aware that we are actually looking for volunteers a lot of the time. If you want to join, you're very welcome. I mean, you listeners, because yeah, we.
So what
always
skills are
have
needed if
things to
someone is
do.
watching and wants to join you? What do you need?
So for the Scores project, reading music, of course. You don't necessarily need to be comfortable with any kind of software, because you can also help with the proofreading, and that just means having on the one side a manuscript, and on the other side the score that I've edited, or someone else in the team, and just comparing the two. So that needs patience and being willing to focus on such a kind of work, but it doesn't need any more than that. So that would be the skills for the edition project. For anything else, we often have volunteers who say, well, I can't quite write anything about this album because I'm not into I'm into music, but I'm not a professional, so I don't know what to look for. And we're like, if you love music, if you listen to music, you have all of the qualities basically to have an opinion about it, and you don't need any more. You don't need you don't need studies. You don't need to have done a master's in something. You just need to love music. So that's also. I should mention though that most of our publications are in French, so that's definitely a prerequisite, right? You need to be willing to write in French, but yeah, that's mainly it. We welcome everyone. Just any music lover is welcome.
So is everyone from your team from France, or do you also have people from
Um,
other countries?
we have people based in other countries who are French or French speaking.
Uh-huh.
We had at the very beginning a couple of friends of mine who helped, who are not French. The idea for the name actually came from her, from one of them, but mostly we're in France because all of the website and everything is in French. It's I guess on the edition project you can help in any language, right? You just have to be able to basically communicate with me, so it should be good. On the other parts of the website, writing articles and stuff, it's mostly people from France.
Oh, wonderful. So everyone who wants to join, a warm welcome.
Yeah, do not hesitate to contact us, definitely. If you want help for this cause, I'd be happy to give you something to do.
That's great. So you said that this project is living now for 4 years. Do you know how many pieces you wrote down in this time?
Yes, I can look it up actually, but we have, so it takes some time. We've recently published Emily Meyer again, First Symphony, so that was a long project. I had been working on that a while.
And you published it in IMSLP, right?
Yeah, like a month ago or 2 months ago, I think. I think we're at something like 10 pieces of music at this point. Mostly orchestra, because I think that's where the biggest need is, right? So often chamber music or lieder, all of that is already quite published, and you can find things. You can buy scores. You can find them online as well. Not everything, of course, but it's easier. Whereas orchestra music is still quite tough to find. So that's my main focus, and that's also because I love a challenge. So if I have a big symphony, it's gonna, I'm gonna be very happy to dig into that. So yeah, around 10 pieces of music, and a lot more coming, because we have a lot in store for the next few months.
Okay. Um, can you
Can I give you an idea?
a little spoiler? Yes.
Yeah, we have a lot of we have a few piano pieces actually, contrary to what I've just been saying, because there's still a lot of things that aren't published. So I have a piece by Louise Farranc actually.
Oh, great.
Yeah. I mean, the manuscript is on IMSLP, and anyone can already play it. It's just it's good to have an actual score, edited score that you can play from, and maybe some piece chamber music for the English horn by Clémence de Grandval.
Oh, great. I love
yeah,
her.
those are pieces that are actually, you can actually find the scores, buy the scores, but I'm a big advocate for having anything that is actually public domain online, because there's no reason why you should pay for your romantic female composers when you can have any Beethoven you want online for free. So that's my
Because it allows performance. That's the
yes,
point.
exactly. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
How do you find the pieces? So are people contacting you and saying, well, I found the score, can you write down the parts? Or is it your own idea or a mixture?
A mixture. With the volunteers, I also like to, if they come with any idea themselves, they're very welcome to get into that piece because you're much more efficient when you're a bit passionate about the composer or the piece itself. Mostly, there's so many things to do, like so many pieces that need editing, so many things that only exist online in the form of manuscripts or orchestra scores without the parts. So whenever I stumble into something like that, I would just write it down somewhere and start it whenever I have the chance. I have a lot of scores that I've written like 15 bars of and never gone further because I just got into other projects, but maybe sometime I will get back to them. Um, so it really depends, and I'm always open to suggestions. And what I should say is the reason the Emily Meyer Symphony got published a few months ago is because I was contacted by an orchestra in London telling me we want to play this piece. We plan on playing it, on performing it in our fall semester. Do you think the score will be ready? Because I had already communicated online that I was working on it. So this gave me just what I needed to finish, right? Because you've got a deadline, you've got musicians that actually need the music on their on their stands on the day of the rehearsal, so you need to finish. So any collaboration like that is really great because you know that the scores are going to be used, and you have an actual deadline to get you going.
So
So
everyone
any
who
orchestra
wants to
out there,
perform a
yeah.
piece can actually write to you and say, I have an orchestra, I would like to perform the piece, I only have a score, can you write down the parts?
Sure, absolutely. I
They
mean,
just need
it
to give you time, right? Because you're
exactly because it
volunteers.
does take time, and yeah, you in a 2 weeks time, I won't be able to help, but in,
Yes.
in longer than that, I will. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I really love this. This is really great. Um,
Yeah.
do you think, or what, in your opinion, are the reasons why music for orchestra isn't published? You said that chamber music, it's different. Um,
I mean, money, right? Especially
uh-huh.
in like in 19th century. To publish music, you had to actually engrave the
Mhm.
music like you would do to be able to print them. And so any additional instrument, any big piece would take more time and more money. And also, if the piece is only going to be used, if the score is only going to be used once or twice, like it would maybe for a symphonic piece or an opera, it's much less. Yeah, it's not always worth it for the publishers, right? And you find that even with forgotten men
Yes.
composers, right? Like you've got scores that are still in manuscript, in a very good manuscript that players would actually be able to read from at the time, but that's not enough for us now. So I think the main reason is that most of the time it wasn't worth it to actually print this
Mhm.
music.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. But actually, it's really a shame, I think, because the pieces were quite popular. If you think of Emilia Meyer, and
Yeah.
it's somehow unbelievable that it didn't, yeah, survive to our days.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
yeah, it's
absolutely.
really doing, yeah, such a wonderful job. Do you get feedback from the people? So do
Yeah.
you know if more orchestras are playing
Hmm.
this music because of you?
Well, yes. So we have a little note in all of our scores mentioning that this is all free, but it's also really nice to know that it's being used. So don't hesitate to just contact us because I love receiving emails from an orchestra in New Zealand saying that they're using the Faust overture, and I'm like, yes, that's awesome.
Yes.
So yes, we do get feedback, probably not from everyone, which is even like a good perspective as well, because hopefully there's more people than I know of that are using my scores. I Yeah, we've got people from all over writing to us. So that's pretty exciting, pretty satisfying as well. That's one of the things I love about editing scores is that you start on day one and you've got nothing, and you end up with pages of music that look good, that will help people play the music. So it's very satisfying, and hopefully it's being useful.
Oh, that's great. Fantastic.
Yeah.
And you also, so the publishing part is one thing that you do,
Mhm.
but you also create playlists and you have articles and CD reviews. Can you tell us something about this too?
Mhm. So the main point is yeah, helping on all fronts, and like not everything is recorded, obviously, far from it. But there's still quite already a lot of music that has been on, that is being recorded, and we want so for the CD reviews, we want to bring light to the musicians and the ensembles and the institutions who are taking the risk to record such pieces, and who decide, yes, I'm going to do an entire CD with just Louis Farranc's music, because that is an undertaking. Um, and it always costs money to record something, and you've got to be sure it's going to work. So we like to yeah, talk about these artists so that um, more will be encouraged to do so. We also use this to encourage people to listen to the pieces, right? So our album reviews are more of a let's get into this composer today and discover the music for the day. So
So
that's why we're doing that.
spotlight on this
Yeah,
composer. Mhm.
yes, exactly. So we try to cover as much as possible. There's actually quite a lot of albums that are that have women composers. It's always not enough, but it's more and more. Also, more and more albums with just women composers, because a couple of years ago you'd find a lot of violin music album with just one tiny short piece by Lily
Mhm.
Boulanger, and everyone was playing the same tiny little piece by Lily Boulanger, and that's great, that's fine. But now we get more forgotten works, forgotten composers, really new pieces of music that are being recorded, and contemporary music as well, because we do not restrict ourselves to just historic composers. So that's for the CD reviews. The playlists are another way of helping the everyday music lover to just have something on their phone, on their computer, to just be like, oh, I want to listen to something today. What am I gonna do? Well, ComposHer as a piano concerto playlist. I'm gonna listen to that, and that's an opportunity to showcase a lot of composers and a lot of pieces as well.
You have these playlists on Spotify and YouTube, or
Yeah, we've
where
got
can we
Spotify,
find them?
YouTube, Deezer. That might be more of a French thing,
Mhm.
but yeah, that's the three platforms we are on at
Mhm.
the moment. Yeah.
Great. And you also write articles about the composers.
So our article section is quite open, really. It can
Uh-huh.
be it can be a biographical thing about this composer that someone just is interested in, and wants to talk about. So we've got our very first article was an article about Elsa Barren, who is a
Mhm.
French composer from the 20th century. She was quite active politically. So we've got a whole article on her written by one of our volunteers, who is a really big specialist of her. And we can also have we've written articles about the Me Too movement in music, about sexual violence and in opera. We can also write about a specific piece, like we have a great article on an opera by Francesca Caccini. So it's really, really open. It's like the name of the section is the salon, which is
Ah,
where intellectuals and artists of all kinds would just gather and play their music, discuss books, discuss paintings, and so that's a bit of the point, right? It's a place where we aim at bringing new knowledge and creating discussion. So that's a
is there
part
really
of the
discussion
website.
coming out of this?
Not at the moment, but
Ah, but you want
like it's
to.
the idea to bring,
Aha.
well, at least to help people think about it. Just ask themselves, why did I not hear about this composer before, or this kind of questions that we as musicians and feminists are being. We are asking this of ourselves all of the time to keep growing and keep learning about people that we don't know at the moment. Like I'm barely able to tell you names of like 3 women painters, and I'd like to be able to.
Mhm.
And so we try to create this kind of questions. Yeah.
You mentioned Louise Farranc 2 times
Hmm.
now, and I know that there's a big fan of Louise Farranc among my followers.
Hmm.
So, would you like to talk a little bit about Louise Farranc? As you're from
Yeah.
France, it would be
Yeah, of
great.
course. Yeah, she's our great symphonist, right? In the
Yes.
at least in the Romantic era. She's a bit of a outsider because so in France, for Romantic composers, most of them got really big into opera. That's the main part of their output. And Louise Farren didn't write any opera.
Mhm.
I'm honestly not sure if it's because she didn't want to or didn't get the opportunity to.
Mhm.
But in the end, she didn't. So she is more known for her symphony and her piano music, right? And also quite a lot of chamber music that is quite specific to her, like with a lot of wind instruments, which is not that often that you see that.
The
Um,
Nonette, for example.
yeah, the Nanette is quite something. I don't think there are many pieces like that in the
Yes.
history of music. And well, she's quite an interesting composer because she had the chance to be supported by her husband, which is not always the case, as we know. And that's what helped her publish quite a lot of music. Her daughter was also a pianist who also, I think, wrote a few pieces of music, but she died very young, which had an impact on Louise Farranc's compositional output. Um, yeah, I personally really love her symphonies. They
Mhm.
have this twist of French music that's not exact. It doesn't sound exactly the same as a German romantic, right? It's a bit more light, but and I really like that. There's still some drama in it, in the overtures as well. So yeah, go and listen to that. Actually, there's quite a few CDs now that have like where her works have been recorded, her orchestral works, which is great.
Do you have a recommendation for us? Which CD
Um,
and which
yeah,
symphony, maybe?
which symphony?
It's hard to
Well,
decide.
yeah, it's hard to decide. I guess the third one would be the more
It's the most
expensive,
popular,
right?
I
It's
think.
yeah,
Mm.
it's her last one is it's the one probably where she had the most experience. Um, well, the Insula Orchestra with Laurent Sequilbet, is doing a whole recording of the whole orchestra music. So I think one CD is out with maybe 2 of the 3 symphonies, and the next CD will have the remaining symphony and the overtures. So you should listen to that. That's bound to be good work. It's on period instruments,
Oh,
so
wow.
that gives a specific flavor as well. Yeah.
Hmm. Oh, that's great. Fantastic. We will listen.
Yeah,
And I think it's really impressive also with Louise Farranc that she gets this equal pay at her time. And I think
exactly.
it
Yeah,
was
she's
because of the Nanette, right?
um I have to confess, I'm not sure. But yeah, she was a piano teacher at the Paris Conservatoire, and she was the first female teacher to get equal pay with her male co-workers, which is badass. And thanks. And also, we are still having issues with that. So clearly, she was ahead of her
Yes.
times.
And she did it.
But
Wow.
and she did it. Yeah. So yeah, she's quite impressive.
And I played her etudes, and it was
Yeah.
really wonderful. I don't know, do you play the piano or no? You're.
I used to a little bit, but and I'm trying to get more into it again, but I'm not. I'm no longer
Did
really
you
a
also
pianist.
play her music on your instrument?
Um, I haven't played her music on a viola, because I haven't played her symphonies basically, and nor did I play her chamber music. I did play a bit of her music on the piano when I
Uh,
was looking for pieces to get back into it, because I think she wrote a few, like she wrote a lot of etudes, and some of them are quite suitable for the young people, right? Or at least the beginners, like I
yes,
am at
Opus
the
50.
moment.
I played
Yeah.
Opus 50. And it was amazing because I had this feeling that this music was written for my hands.
Mm.
And I never experienced something like this before. So it would be really interesting for me if someone else, what are
Yeah.
your experiences?
Well, yeah, I didn't get that far, and
Mhm.
nothing feels quite written for my hands because I'm not very comfortable with the piano at the moment. But that's a feeling that I got from other in with other instruments and from other
Ah,
people, because there's something quite quite strong, quite powerful about playing music that was written by a woman when you yourself are a woman musician. And
mhm.
like Clara played the violin for like whole her life, and during her studies, I think she played one female composer, and that was a contemporary composer. So the feeling you get when you play a concerto, a sonata by a female composer is quite special, I think, because you have that powerful image of music that hasn't been heard that often in however many years, and of music that was actually written by someone who resembles you, who you can identify with. I think that's very powerful, and I think we often think about children needing role models and seeing women in these positions to feel like they can achieve the same things. But I think it's important for adults as well. Like
Yes.
when I see women on the podium of an orchestra, it's always something very powerful, because it it makes you realize that it could have been you, because we all keep still have these internalized internalized feelings that we can't achieve certain things. We work very
Patriarchy,
hard.
is it this in English? Patriarchy?
Yeah,
Pat
yeah. Misogyny, really. Like we are. I never envisioned myself as a conductor,
mhm,
um, but I think maybe I would have
mhm.
if I'd seen more conductors, more women conductors before.
How's the situation in France concerning female conductors? There was once a minister, I think, and she wanted to do 50-50 quota, but she didn't do it. There was something
Yeah,
in the media a while ago.
we're not at a 50-50 for sure.
Ah,
I think it's getting better. The key thing now is to watch out and see if it's gonna stay. If it's not like some kind of um, political effect that now it is good to have female conductors, so more are invited to conduct our orchestras and stuff. But we have to keep watching that it keeps happening, and give actual job to these women. We have a very amazing project in France at the moment that's called La Maestra, which was created
Ah,
by Claire
yes.
Gibault, who is herself a conductor, and she basically had to create her own orchestra in order to be able to conduct in France, because despite her amazing studies abroad, when she came back in France, no one would give her a job. And she had worked with very famous conductors in Italy, and elsewhere, but yeah, in France, no one would give her a job. So she basically founded her orchestra. And now, years later, they founded this competition for women conductors specifically, which is a difficult subject in France, the idea that you would reserve things for just women. A lot of
Aha,
people think
okay.
that this is another way to discriminate, and that to discriminate, and that it's not a good thing, because it puts them on one side. Like, you've got the female conductors on one side and the men on the other side. But I personally think that when you have been going on for that many years without female conductors, or barely any, you have to do something quite strong and impactful at one moment to just balance the scales, right? So I've been to 2 editions of this conducting competition, and it was inspiring, really, to have that many women, talented women, with a lot to say, a lot to show on the podium. That was really, really amazing.
Wow, great. This is so
So it's gonna
impressive. You were
keep
in the
happening.
audience? Wow.
Yeah, yeah, I
That's
was.
great. How about female composers in France? Are they popular or not so? Or is it changing?
um, I think it is changing a bit, like in some other countries, but I often feel like we have a bit of a delay with, like, the UK, for example,
Uh-huh.
and we're still at that stage where it's not quite, it's not gotten into really the habit of institutions to really program female composers. Like, something like Ethel Smythe, the Wreckers, been done at Glyndebourne this past summer in the UK, would
And in
not let
Houston
that happen
now,
in
and also
France.
in
And
Berlin.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. And that, I mean, that opera was first written in French. It was supposed to be created in France, and it didn't happen, and it still hasn't, I think, at least not by
No,
any
no, no, that's
major.
not right. In Berlin, it was
Yeah.
in French. Yes.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, but
Yes. And also, I
it's
think
not
in
been
Glyndebourne.
right.
It was the same
In
production, I think.
Okay,
And they
awesome. I
decided
did
to do
listen to
it in
the
French because she
Glenburn.
wanted it,
Awesome.
actually, this way.
Yeah, but what I meant is that in France, it still hasn't been performed, or
Ah,
at least
okay.
not by any major
Oh,
opera company, to my knowledge. I might be wrong.
yes. Ah.
So yeah, we do have a few composers, contemporary composers that are quite popular. Like Camille Pépin, I know that.
Hmm.
I mean, she's not French, but Kaya Sario is also doing a lot of work in France. She had her opera Innocence created in France a couple of years ago. So we there are some, of course, but I think it's still not. We're not far enough yet. It's still quite difficult to have this conversation with a lot of people who are not always willing to really think about who they are programming, and they're just
Hmm.
gonna have the usuals.
Such a pity because there are so many wonderful French composers. I think
Yeah,
of Melbourne's, Chaminade, and
yeah, those are getting some some light now. I should mention, actually, there are quite a few projects that are bringing them to light and that are doing a lot of things for them. So you've got Présence Compositrice, which started as a festival,
Are you
and
connected?
I mean we're in touch, but we're not
Mm-hmm.
actually doing any project together. But there's
Mm-hmm.
room for all of us with how many composers there are. So they are showcasing a lot of women composers and women musicians as well. Um, there's a CD of Marie-Jaël piano music
Oh,
going out
yes.
right now that's their first recording. So that's amazing. There's also La Boîte à Pépites, which is a new label, a new recording house, which is doing a lot for women composers, and that they recorded a lot of Charlotte Sohi's music the past year. So that was a big thing as well. So there are a lot of projects. I mean, I say a lot, but not that much because we all know each other. So that means not
Mm-hmm.
that many of us are doing that. But there are amazing projects. I think what's missing is still for the institutions to catch that train, right? To be at the same level of commitments to actually taking the time to do the research, to find the scores, to find the music, um, to do brave things like programming a whole symphony by a woman and not just a little overture and then a big piece is going to be by men, right? Yeah.
How do you think we can change this? I know that Talia Elan, for example, she tells people that the audience should ask why they don't program works by female composers. What do you think is the way? Is it from the amateurs or from the professionals or?
I honestly, I think you've got to work on both.
Mhm.
Our project with Composer is mostly to work on, at least for now, to work on the amateur side of it, because that's what I am. I'm an I'm an amateur musician, and I want to sing and to play women composers. So
Mhm.
I'm gonna go from that angle. But clearly, it's not going to be enough. You need also other projects, or even our project, to also speak to professionals. I think there's no magical solution. It's going to take time. Um, but the main thing I can tell to people, I can say to people, is just stay curious, right? Do
Mhm.
try and listen from time to time to things that you don't know yet. And I think the institutions are, and I say the institutions, that's not true of all of them, and things are changing. I just want to make sure that they are actually changing for good and not just because it's a phase at the moment to program a few female composers from time to time, especially like in March.
Yes.
Yeah.
March 8th.
God.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then it's done.
Yeah, we've done
Oh,
our thing for the year. No need for any more female
yeah.
composers. Yeah, that's a bit where we are in France for the
Aha.
moment, and I think we need to go further, obviously, and it's gonna happen. I'm quite hopeful
Mhm.
that it requires work, right? It requires, um, I think, having good resources is crucial, and that's the scores. That's part of that, right? I
Yes.
understand that for a conductor or someone programming is being responsible for the programming in an institution, um, if it takes you too much time to find new scores, to find the information about is it suitable for my orchestra? Do I have the right numbers of players? How long is it? If it's too hard to find all of that information, you're gonna move on to something that you already know is suitable for what you're looking for. So I think having good resources is a big step as well.
Yes, exactly. This is also my experience because I do a lot of research, and sometimes I come across a piece, I find the name of the piece, and then the big search is starting. So I don't find the score, or if I find the score, there are no parts, and well, then
Yeah.
I cannot do it, and
Yeah.
it really hurts because actually I want to, but if it's not possible, yeah,
Yeah.
it's really a big yeah. It's really, really important, your work. I really, yeah,
Well,
I
thank you.
cannot
You
say to
too. I
you
mean, you're doing a lot.
how much this means to me, and also I think to everyone who's watching and
Thanks.
who thinks that it's important to play those composers. Because when you don't play the music, it's dead.
Yeah. It's meant to be heard, right? Yeah.
Yes. So it's really, yeah, thanks from the bottom of my heart.
Well, thank you for
Um,
saying all of that, right? Because it can be quite frustrating, you know that from time to
Yes, I
time, and
know,
you're like,
because sometimes I also write down some sheet of music if it's
yeah,
short, and I know, yeah, it takes time and
yeah,
devotion, and I know about this frustration,
yeah,
especially when you don't earn any money. So it's just, yeah,
yeah.
it's just from your heart.
Exactly. I mean, that's the way I want it to be, actually, really,
Mhm.
for at least at the moment. I'm not looking
Yes.
to make any money from that. I really want it to be, or at least I want it to be free for the people using it.
Hmm.
The question of whether or not ComposHer itself could be maybe financed to like buy the digital scores from some libraries or stuff like that. That's still an open question, but I want the users to be able to have these scores for free. Um, and I see that we have Hansel pushers with us, and
Yes.
I should mention, maybe I'm not allowed to, but I'm gonna do anyway. We might be working, the two of us, on an orchestra score by Fanny Hensel that
Oh,
might be
really?
out soon. Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's
Yeah.
great. I think Molly will
So
be really happy.
yeah.
So she wrote,
I
thank you
mean,
both for your work.
she
And
knows it. Yeah.
yes, and thanks also to Molly because she's also doing an amazing job with all the Funny
Yeah.
Hensel publishing. Wow. And on Monday, it's Funny Hensel's birthday. So
Yeah.
it's good that we talked about this.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah.
we're nearly at the end. So maybe the last minutes. What do you have any dreams about ComposHer or any long-term goals?
Um, I think it's not an easy question, right? Because whenever
I
you start to
know.
think about the long-term goal, it can be also quite frustrating to not see if that's going to be happening or not. But um, I guess our might not be very glamorous, but the database that I mentioned that for now is only for our eyes in ComposHer. I'd love to have a way to have that out there in a way that is really useful for people. That's not um, just doing something that other people are doing really quite efficiently already, like done in the UK as an amazing list of composers. And I want to do something that's a bit different than that. So we're working on compiling lists of concertos, sonatas for different instruments that we might be able to directly send to musicians and professors and teachers and orchestras. So that's a big project that we are working on.
Hmm.
And yeah, just keep doing scores. I'm an introvert at heart, so I like also being just behind my computer and doing stuff
Hmm.
in a dark corner of my room and just yeah, helping from that side of things. Yeah.
That's quite charming. So I'm very glad that I got you on camera.
Yeah,
Thanks so
doesn't
much.
happen that often.
Yeah, I know. Because it's interesting. I never saw you anywhere. It's like
Yeah,
with
I
Molly
think.
from Hansel Pushers. You're behind this avatar, and no
Yeah,
one knows who's behind.
I mean, it's also wanting to have composers work as a team effort, because I'm for sure not the only one doing that, and I wouldn't be doing that much if Clara hadn't figured it all out to do something more consistent. So I think that's part of the reason. And yeah, from the beginning we existed as a ComposHer unit and not specifically as Marie and Clara, but we tried.
And also the 20 persons who also write, no? It's a big team. Great. Okay, so Marie, thanks a lot for this wonderful chat.
Well,
Thanks.
thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, and again, thanks so much for your wonderful work and devotion in this project.
My pleasure.
I really appreciate it, and I think everyone else who's watching also. So I think we can both say, if you like the project, play the pieces to everyone.
Yes. Listen to the pieces, play the pieces, yeah, all of that.
Go for it.
Sure.
Fantastic. Marie, thanks a lot, and I wish you a wonderful evening.
Same to you, and same to everyone. Thank you.
Okay. Have a nice
Thanks.
evening. Goodbye.
Bye.